U.S. President Barack Obama has pledged the best is yet to come after the decisive re-election victory over Republican challenger Mitt Romney. After a hard-fought campaign which highlighted America's political divide, Mr. Obama pledged, as he did 4 years ago, to work with his opponents. Mr. Romney echoed that call for unity as he graciously admitted defeat. Voters also left the Democrats in charge of the Senate and Republicans leading the House of Representatives. In the Electoral College, the state-by-state tally that determines U.S. presidential elections, Mr. Obama has won 303 electoral votes to Mr. Romney's 206. People Before Politics, America's first black president, sealed victory with a clean sweep of the most important swing states, including Ohio, Virginia and Pennsylvania. Mr. Romney could only snatch Indiana and North Carolina from his rival's 2008 grasp. The final swing state, Florida, remains too close to call. But the Democratic incumbent's lead in the popular vote count was much slimmer. He had 50.3% to 48.1% for Mr. Romney. Thousands of Obama supporters hugged and cheered in the Chicago Convention Center where he delivered his victory speech in the early hours of Wednesday. "We have picked ourselves up. We have fought our way back, and we know in our hearts that for the United States of America the best is yet to come," said Mr. Obama, 51. He was returning to the White House more determined and more inspired than ever about the work there is to do, he said. Mr. Obama pledged to work with Republican leaders in Congress to reduce the government's budget deficit, fix the tax code and reform the immigration system. He also offered to meet Mr. Romney to discuss how they could work together. The Republican admitted defeat with a brief speech shortly after midnight on Wednesday in Boston. "This is a time of great challenges for America, and I pray that the President will be successful in guiding our nation," Mr. Romney said. The 65-year-old former Massachusetts governor urged politicians on both sides to put the people before the politics. But Mr. Obama's second-term agenda will lie largely in the hands of the Republican leader of the House of Representatives, Speaker John Boehner, with whom he bickered bitterly during his first term. "Failures or excesses," Mr. Boehner told a gathering of Republicans, "the American people want solutions, and tonight, they've responded by renewing our Republican majority." Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader in the Senate, said voters had not endorsed the failures or excesses of the president's first term. They have simply given him more time to finish the job they asked him to do, together with a Congress that restored balance to Washington after 2 years of one-party control, McConnell added. Mr. Obama faces his first challenge when Congress returns next week to begin dealing with the so-called fiscal cliff, the package of automatic tax rises and cuts to military and domestic spending. Economists warn that the measure, set to be triggered in January unless lawmakers can find agreement, could plunge the nation back into a recession. Mr. Obama's victory came despite lingering high unemployment, 7.9% on Election Day, and tepid economic growth. Turnout lower, but voters seem to have given him credit for his 2009 rescue of the U.S. car industry and for the commando mission that killed Osama bin Laden in Pakistan last year. Mr. Obama's re-election also safeguards his healthcare reform law, which Mr. Romney had pledged to repeal. In other key ballots referendums in Maine, Maryland and Washington state approved same-sex marriage, while a measure in Minnesota to block gay unions failed. Colorado and Washington state voted to legalize recreational use of marijuana. California voters rejected a proposal to abolish the death penalty in a referendum. Puerto Ricans voted in favor of becoming the 51st U.S. state, if Congress approves the move. Also on Tuesday's ballot were 11 state governorships, a third of the seats in the 100-member U.S. Senate and all 435 seats in the House of Representatives. Mr. Obama and Mr. Romney, as well as their respective allies, raised more than dollars to BN pounds 1.25 BN largely for advertising swing states. Preliminary figures suggest fewer people voted than 4 years ago. With most ballots tallied, more than 117 million people participated, compared to record-breaking figures of 131 million 4 years ago. Turnout was down sharply in some states, including Texas, as well as states on the U.S. East Coast that were hit hard by Superstorm Sandy last week. International leaders congratulated the president, including Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who vowed to work with Mr. Obama to ensure the interests that are vital for the security of Israel's citizens.